with this, but I have suddenly come back around to the idea of eating KD, like craft dinner.
I love craft.
I really loved it during college, and I think I just ate it far too much till I wore it out of my system completely.
It always comes back around.
I haven't eaten it in years, and Cody and Shane are a big fan of like cutting up hot dogs into it or like kind of trying to bougie it up, if you can call it that, for craft dinner.
I get it.
And there's been all sorts of radical experiments that have happened with craft dinner being the base. But yeah, very recently I've been getting back into it, and I'm kind of shocked, but you're right, it does always come back
It
around.
does.
I don't know if it's a nostalgia thing or if it's just been enough time or what, but yeah, that's been my kick recently.
That's like a Canadian thing, right?
I think so. It's not a British thing for sure. And we have American friends that we like game with,
Yeah.
and they just call it like macaroni and cheese or like macaroni. Like our friend from South Carolina is like, what the hell is KD kind of thing.
What's that KD?
Yeah, literally. So I think it is a Canadian thing.
Oh, Americans, you got to get on it.
I think so. And then just like, is it the controversy of the folks who put ketchup in it, or like,
I can't get behind that.
And see, I can. I like it.
Craziness.
But Cody will put hot sauce in it, or, you know, a variation of different condiments depending on what direction he's taken it.
I'm a sour cream girly all the way.
Oh, yes. We've said this before.
Sour cream and panko crumbs.
He's really gotten me into the crispy onions that you can get. Oh my God. They are really good on literally everything.
It's luxury.
It is. Anyway, now that I've made everybody hungry, I'm sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Dina. Welcome to the Grim Curriculum.
Okay, so over the last few years, we've shared quite a few stories about hauntings in the UK. When it comes to a place with so much history, much of it gruesome, it probably doesn't come as a shock that there are very much paranormal stories that will follow.
Today, we're covering a tale with a ghostly origin that resulted in the death of an innocent man. Unlike other cases that we talk about, this man was not killed due to malice. He was killed because someone thought he was none other than a ghost himself.
Which is ironic if you think about it, because if Mans thought you were a ghost, you're already dead.
Yeah.
What's he doing trying to kill you?
He's trying real hard.
I guess so. We're also going to be talking about how the judicial system at the time handled such a unique case, along with the fact that it took 180 years before a final decision was made.
This is the story of the Hammersmith Ghost murder case. It is all said to have started when a pregnant woman who was going for a walk in the Hammersmith graveyard. As she was going for her spooky stroll, she saw a tall figure dressed in white moving around the gravestones. Before she could react, it embraced her, causing her to faint. She died a few days later from the shock.
If our story ended here, it would be a perfect candidate for our extra credit Strange and Unusual Death segment.
She was not the only one who'd seen something strange. In 1803, a man named Thomas Groom later testified that the spirit had also accosted him one night when he was walking with a friend. He claimed that something rose from beyond the tombstone and grabbed him by the throat. Thomas tried to grab the specter and made contact with what he thought was a coat. It then vanished.
And they weren't the only ones. An elderly woman had a similar experience along with a night watchman. Others claimed to see a man with a cut throat, often wearing a shroud. And many reported that it had horns, glass eyes, and on some occasions, wore animal skin.
Another time, a wagon pulled by 8 horses was passing through carrying 16 people when the ghost was spotted. The driver got so scared that he took off, leaving the horses and his passengers behind.
That's hilarious. Like, dude, you're literally in a vehicle.
Yep.
Just take everybody with you.
I just picture him like going like, nope, don't get paid enough, goodbye, and running off.
Just like Looney Tunesing, like, or
Yes.
Looney Tunesing. Yeah, Looney Tunesing.
Yeah, literally.
Leaving like a cloud of dust shaped, like,
Yep.
and the carriage behind. This caused the townspeople to develop their own theories. Many thought that it was the spirit of a man who took his own life. The common belief was that those who had died in such a manner should not be buried in consecrated ground because their souls would never truly be at rest.
Others were a little bit more skeptical and believed that the ghost was a prankster wearing a white sheet scaring whoever came into contact with him.
At the time, the area did not have an organized police force. Therefore, groups of people got together and formed armed patrols in hopes of capturing whoever or whatever was causing so much havoc.
Unfortunately, the village had many lanes and paths leading in and out of it, making it difficult to cover the entire grounds. One member of the patrol claimed to have seen a figure that appeared to be wearing what looked like a sheet or a tablecloth. He chased it, but was unable to figure out who it was.
One of the men who was part of the patrol was a night watchman named William Girdler. On the evening of January 3rd, 1904, William met with one of the armed citizens patrolling the area, a man named Francis Smith. Francis had arrived with a shotgun and told Girdler that he was going out to look for the ghost. They then went their separate ways.
Just after 11 p.m. that night, he encountered Thomas Millwood, a local bricklayer. Thomas had been mistaken for the ghost on two different occasions due to his clothing, which consisted of white pants, a white flannel waistcoat, a white apron, and white shoes.
Well, I can see why that might be
Yes.
confusing for folks.
Just prior to this, his family had suggested to him that he put on a darker coat to hide his work clothes so that he wouldn't be suspected of being the ghost again.
Well, you know what? Strange times call for strange measures.
Yeah.
In places like Churchill up north in Manitoba, where the polar bears are,
Mm-hmm.
they say not to wear, full white outfits because someone might mistake you from a distance as a polar
It's
bear.
pretty fair.
Absolutely. That night, Thomas was heading home after visiting his parents and his sister who lived on Black Lion Lane. Shortly after saying goodbye to his sister, she heard someone shout,
Damn you! Who are you and what are you? Damn you! I'll shoot you.
followed by a gunshot.
It appears that Thomas Millwood had been mistaken for the ghost yet again, this time by Francis Smith. Smith stated that he had called out to him twice but received no response. He said that the figure continued to move towards him, which caused him to fear for his life to the extent that he had no other choice but to open fire.
After hearing the shot, Girdler, along with two other men, John Locke and George Stowe, found Smith, who apparently appeared to be extremely upset upon seeing the body. They advised Francis Smith to return to his home, which he did.
The constable of a nearby town arrived to the scene shortly after and took Smith into custody. He was still upset, but compliant. The body of Thomas Millwood was taken to an inn where a surgeon named Mr. Flower examined his body the following day. His death was ruled to be caused by a gunshot to the left side of his lower jaw.
Ooh. During the coroner's inquest, witnesses stated that that particular evening had been dark and gloomy, making it difficult to see. They also said that the area was obscured by hedges on either side. Numerous people who knew Smith stated that he was gentle and mild mannered.
Mild mannered, but he still shot at a ghost.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it was, the 1900s, early
Yeah.
1900s. People were a little more superstitious in those days. But for God's sakes, this man has already been mistaken twice.
Mm-hmm.
And really, what are the chances it's actually a ghost?
Yeah.
Especially since one of the big theories, and kind of had been sort of proven in certain ways, was that it was just someone with a sheet pulling a prank. So I think guns were a little overkill, literally.
They needed some salt or something.
I guess so, or a priest or something.
The coroner ultimately ruled that the act was a rash act of willful murder, and Francis Smith was sent to trial at the Old Bailey. He admitted to killing Thomas Millwood, but insisted that the whole thing was just a case of mistaken identity and pleaded not guilty. The presiding judge, a man named Lord Chief Baron Sir Archibald MacDonald, stated the following.
However disgusted the jury might feel in their own minds with the abominable person guilty of the misdemeanor of terrifying the neighborhood, Still, the prisoner had no right to construe such misdemeanor into a capital offense or to conclude that a man dressed in white was a ghost. In this case, there was a deliberate carrying of a loaded gun, which the prisoner concluded he was entitled to fire, but which he really was not, and he did fire it with a rashness which the law does not excuse. In all the circumstances of the case, no man is allowed to kill another rashly. So the
It's
judge,
fair.
absolutely, the judge is saying, look, bro, you can't just run around shooting people because you think they're a ghost. That is simply not going to get you off the hook for murdering someone.
The judge explained to the jury that malice was not always required when it came to murder, and that someone guilty would only need to have the intent to kill.
Absolutely. Thomas Millwood's wife took the stand and confirmed that he had already been warned to alter his clothing due to being mistaken for a ghost in the past. She said,
On Saturday evening, he and I were at home, for he lived with me. He said he had frightened two ladies and a gentleman who were coming along the terrace in a carriage. For that, the man said he dared to say, "There goes the ghost," and that he was no more than a ghost than he was. And I asked him, using a bad word, did he want a punch to the head? I begged him to change his dress. Thomas, says I, as there is a piece of work about the ghost, and your clothes look white, pray do put on your greatcoat, that you may not run any danger.
initially, the jury agreed that Francis Smith was guilty of manslaughter, but this was not acceptable to the judge, and it was suggested that they reconsider. Their only options were that he was guilty of murder or that he should be acquitted. Okay, just a second here. Obviously, the law could be very different in those days.
Yeah.
The jury is there to kind of decide it. I feel like the judge is there to just oversee and
Hmm.
make sure everything is, he's the referee, if you will.
Yes.
Um for him to be like, the jury to deliberate and make this decision and then judge be like, "No, wrong, try again." It's like,
Yeah.
is that really fair?
He literally was like, that's not good enough.
That's wild.
The judge stated that Francis Smith had not acted in self defense and was never in any danger. He also said that the death of Thomas Millwood had not been an accident. There was no jurisdiction to shoot him, whether or not he was a ghost.
He also said that if Thomas Millwood had been pretending to be a ghost, there still would be no reason to kill him due to the fact that he would have been committing a misdemeanor of nuisance, in which case the punishment would have been a small fine, not death. So he's like, even if he was the prankster and
Yeah,
doing this on purpose to like scare people, you still don't have the right to shoot the poor
which
bastard.
is fair.
Absolutely.
The jury then returned with a verdict of guilty of first degree murder. Unfortunately for Francis Smith, this meant that his punishment was to be hanged, drawn, and quartered.
Woof. After the sentence was issued, public outrage began. Lord Chief Baron agreed to report the case to the Crown immediately. The Crown returned a command of respite during pleasure, and the sentence was changed to imprisonment for 1 year.
Thank goodness.
Thank God for this poor man. I mean, to be fair, he didn't mean to, like, it was an accident in the sense that
Yeah.
it was mistaken identity, if you will. But I don't think he deserves execution for that.
No,
In my
definitely
personal
not.
opinion, I don't think it's deserved.
And it's one of those things where we talk a lot about people who kill with intent, and this was not
Hmm.
this was just kind of a man who was swept up in the local outrage,
Yeah.
and I'm sure a lot of people were walking around with guns and they were ready to shoot this thing.
Absolutely. Now, I don't think he should have gotten off scot-free because,
No.
as the judge says, he still had no right to just be going around shooting people
Yes.
because he was scared of a ghost, which is ludicrous, to be honest
Yeah,
with
it
you.
really is.
So absolutely there needs to be some form of punishment. But yeah, I think execution, hang, drawn, and quartered, just a smidge too far.
Yeah. Upon hearing the story, local shoemaker John Graham stepped forward and admitted that it was him who was pretending to be the
Oh
ghost.
no, John.
His reason, he wanted to get revenge on an apprentice of his who was scaring John's children with ghost stories.
Oh my God, so petty. This admission caused the stories of the Hammersmith Ghost to rest for a little while at least. In 1824, new reports of the ghost surfaced with a bit of a twist. This time, the specter was said to breathe fire on anyone unlucky enough to cross his path.
Tales of the Hammersmith Ghost died down in the late 1830s when another famous figure gained attention, the one, the only, Spring-Heeled Jack.
Which is another story we will definitely cover in the future. And if you have played Assassin's Creed Syndicate, you come across him in
Do you
it.
really?
Yeah, and he's a little bastard. He basically makes you chase him all over London, and he's killing people as he's going
Oh my
along, and you're
goodness.
trying to find him. But
I
yeah.
love that. Overall, the Hammersmith Ghost murder case had a long-lasting effect on UK law. It exposed the issue of a lack of available defense for someone who believes their actions are necessary despite the potential for fatal consequences.
It is said to have haunted the courts for over a century until 1983 when the case was finally appealed. A man named Gladstone Williams had seen a man dragging someone violently down the street while they screamed for help. Williams intervened and injured the assailant.
It turns out the reason the man was being dragged was because he was a suspected thief who was being apprehended. Gladstone Williams was convicted of assault occasioning actual bodily harm. The appeal was allowed and the conviction was ultimately overturned.
This resulted in the judges clarifying the law, stating,
In a case of self-defense, where self-defense or the prevention of the crime is concerned, if the jury came to the conclusion that the defendant believed or may have believed that he was being attacked or a crime was being committed, and that the force was necessary to protect himself or prevent the crime, then the prosecution have not proved their case. If, however, the defendant's alleged belief was mistaken and if the mistake was an unreasonable one, that may be a peaceful reason for coming to the conclusion that the belief was not honestly held and should be rejected. Even if the jury come to the conclusion that the mistake was an unreasonable one, if the defendant may genuinely have upon laboring under it, he is entitled to rely upon it.
wow, that's a mouthful.
It
Holy
really
cow.
is.
The story of the Hammersmith ghost eventually faded and was, for the most part, forgotten. Legends now say that the ghost of Thomas Millwood haunts the Hammersmith pub, where he was carried after he was shot.
The landlord of the pub claims that he has been woken up in the middle of the night by someone calling his name. Staff also say that the computers turn on and off by themselves and that they often hear footsteps and voices when the pub is empty.
So, in a way, a man was killed because someone thought he was a ghost and eventually ended up being one.
That is, if you believe that sort of thing.
I mean, the pub is old and it's a very old story.
I'd be haunting that place.
Absolutely. I don't know. I think if you have a choice in the matter and it's kind of you have a choice like, okay, I died. I'm going to haunt somewhere for like 25 years.
Yeah.
And then I'll pass on if there's something else to pass on to. You know what I mean? I'm going to have some fun first.
And that is the story of the Hammersmith Ghost murder case.
I really liked that one.
When I first heard this, I found a lot of accounts that said that Francis Smith was actually killed because of this, that they executed him.
Whoa.
And I was somewhat relieved when I found out that he wasn't.
Yeah, me too.
It's pretty horrible that a person is dead because of something so silly.
Yes.
For lack of a better word.
It's a freak accident in a way.
It is a strange and unusual death.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely it is.
I tried to find out what happened to Francis Smith after he was released from prison. I could not find a single thing, but I did find out that the pub has a plaque for Thomas Millwood.
I like that. I think probably he just got out of prison and went on and lived the rest of his life. I hope.
I do too. I really do.
I hope it wasn't too much of a blemish, really, because I just think, again, like I've said, execution is not a punishment that I believe fits this crime.
No, definitely not.
So, yeah, I hope he got out of prison and just lived the rest of his life.
It's a fun story. I like it.
It is. So sorry to Thomas Millwood.
Yes, he really is. I mean, he is the victim here.
Absolutely. I mean, if he is still haunting the pub, I hope he's having a good time doing it. And if he's not still haunting the pub, I hope he's passed on to a better place.
Definitely. With all of that, don't forget to subscribe to our Patreon. I just put up a promotion on there where any of the tiers are 50% off.
Ooh.
So a fabulous little deal for you.
Ooh, we love a sale.
Yeah, and that does include our Grim VIPs. For all of the other tiers, you get early episode reveals for the free tier. You also get Discord. You also get video versions of all of the episodes. So check that out. And with all of that, a big thank you to our Grim VIPs.
A humongous thank you to the wonderful, the fabulous Mayhem Mudkip, Nova, Lisa, Brian, Kevinus Musicus, Bob, Steven Centauri, Paranoid Pop Rocks, Judy, and Atlantean Jedi.
You rock.
We appreciate the heck out of y'all.
Thank you all so much for listening. This has been
The Grim Curriculum. I thought since we are recording this particular episode on Friday the 13th that I would get us a couple of Friday the 13th facts.
I love it.
So as of Friday the 13th, 2025, this is the only Friday the 13th this year. There can be a maximum of 3 Friday the 13th in a year. You can't have more than that, but you can't have less than 1. And some well-known personalities of Friday the 13th birthday fame would be Cuban president, or I should say former Cuban president, Fidel Castro, and the very first Grand Wizard of the KKK.
Oh my goodness.
So do what you will with that information.
Happy birthday, I guess.
Happy birthday.
Ooh. Bye.